Right now, we are talking with Dr. Jared Ball. He's no stranger to our class, and we wanted to talk to you about two things. One of the main premises that you've been working on for a long time is hip-hop as mass communication. Explain how that works and why this is an important concept for the people watching, for our classes listening, to really understand.
Well, I mean, I guess most simply, the idea is just that we have to, I think, redefine or be more clear about what media are. So when we talk about hip-hop as mass media or mass communication, we're just talking about hip-hop as that which is conveying some sort of message, some sort of content, some sort of philosophy, ideology, that is not even necessarily the view of the person involved in saying it. That is often the ideology of entities that are above or beyond the individual seen or heard at that moment.
Entertainers. We dominate the field of entertainment, but we don't control the field of entertainment. And entertainers are used as weapons against us. They are used as political tools against black people. You find Lionel Hampton campaigning for Nixon. You find Wilt Chamberlain campaigning for Nixon. You find James Brown writing a song, America is my home, and when black people begin to turn against him, then he comes back and makes a song, I'm black and I'm proud. And this enters into the cultural realm, which, people have to be very aware of, because the whole movement is in danger of being co-opted by the politicians of the white power structure. They recognize that if they can get black people thinking culturally, they don't have to worry about them moving politically.
Give us an example of what you mean by that.
Well, my favorite example is actually in that one season of Making the Band, where Puffy had Chopper and Fred freestyle against each other to get to see which one was going to get picked up to join it. So we had all been watching it, so we all know that these two young men are coming from more or less poor communities. They're desperate to get on. They're starving artists. They're hungry for their career, and so on. But when they started freestyling, everything was about the bling that they had, the women that they had, the cars that they had, the lives that they were going to lead, and so on and so on and so on. Because I think it was a sort of an unconscious way of saying, I know what Puffy wants to hear, I know what gets played on the radio, I know what is allowed to be successful, and this is the content. So we're not going to freestyle about what is actually happening to us, what lives we actually are leading. We're going to freestyle about something that is a fantasy, is the ideology of really someone else, or the worldview of someone else, or someone else's fantasy about what we should be involved in. And I'm not saying this is a conscious thing. In fact, what makes it most insidious and dangerous is that it's not conscious. But that's basically the point. And by saying it, it just means, by phrasing it the way we're trying to do it, is to say, if you understand that hip-hop is conveying something, that all media are conveying something, that it is, media are not just the technologies of TV and radio and film. They are carriers of content. They are carriers of ideas and worldviews. They disseminate messages. They disseminate symbols and ways to define your reality. And if you look at hip-hop in that way, then you can start to attach it to the goals of society, to the economic model, to the colonialism we've talked about in other times, to corporate design, to the ruling elite, and so on and so forth. And I think add some depth to the conversation and add some criticism that's necessary.
Let me ask you this then, with that in mind, from your understanding, does the average person who's sitting there maybe doing his freestyle, showing up at a dance with his designer shirt that has a label and all these other things, it seems like he doesn't realize that he is mass media, but corporations that have maybe dressed him up to promote their product, or the radio station that decides to maybe play one part of his message and not the other, like we hear Jay-Z talking about his bling, but we don't hear Jay-Z's song about Katrina, which is a very powerful song.
It is. That's right.
So it seems like the corporation clearly understand hip-hop as a media. How do the people who create this not see themselves as that powerful and not see themselves as powerful vessels for communication?
Well, we have to be fair and clear here that even people that I would consider my enemy have done some work. I mean, they've done some study. The social order and the economic order we find ourselves in right now is not the result of some haphazard accident. People have been studying this for a long time. I mean, Chicago University as a whole was put together by Rockefeller and has done a number of things. It produced the Chicago School of Economics, which produced neoliberalism as an economic model, which is destroying half the world. It also produced the first institutionalized study of communication in this country for the express purpose of studying how is communication going to be used to maintain a social order that we in power find acceptable. How are we going to propagandize people? How are we going to disseminate ideas of proper assimilation for immigrants and other groups coming to the country or who were forcibly brought to the country, and so on. So they've been studying, and that's just one example. I mean, they've been studying this for quite a while. So they're looking at, as we could probably think pretty easily and clearly about in terms of black history or anyone's history for that matter, they look at us differently than we look at ourselves just from the beginning. Then the goal is, as Edward Bernays said, who's considered the father of modern public relations, he said, propaganda is defined by creating what he said was a reciprocal understanding. In other words, it's saying, I see you a certain way, now how do I make you see yourself in a certain way that I've developed? How do I make you see yourself the way I see you? How do I make you see a situation the way I want you to see it? You know? Ice-T,
I had a conversation with Ice-T, and he said that when he was pimping, his goal was to get the female. He said he would pull a woman into the room, and he would say, "Baby, what color's the sky?"
That's right.
And she would say, "It's blue." And he goes, "No, the sky is black." And she would go, "No, it's blue." And he'd go, "No, it's black. I just haven't shown you that yet."
That's right.
And so basically, it's a form of pimping.
Same process. That's another perfect example. Same process. How do you propagandize somebody into seeing the world the way you need them to see it, which will make them behave in the way you need them to behave? And that's exactly what a pimp does. So the higher level macro pimping that is going on just does the same thing. So even in the documentary Merchants of Cool that we use in our classroom, you see corporations paying black young men and women to dance at a hip-hop show featuring Jay-Z and Ja Rule, which is then turned into a Sprite commercial. So the black kids take the $50 and they're happy to show up for $50 and dance for a little while. The white kids show up because white kids go where black kids are, because what black people do is cool and white kids want to emulate that. And they're all there trying, or they're there to see Jay-Z and Ja Rule, and meanwhile, the corporate entities are using that experience for an entirely different purpose, right? Now, it almost works better if the people involved at the lower level, so to speak, don't know what's going on. They're there because they got the $50. They're there to see Jay-Z.
That's where ignorance is bliss.
Sure, absolutely, and it's convenient, and it's not just bliss for that so-called ignorant person. It's bliss for those in power who don't have to worry about being challenged in what they're doing. And this is exactly so. All of this that we're talking about here is what I mean by saying let's look at hip hop as mass media. How is hip hop being used to convey messages? Because then you're forced to deal with the differences and the contradictions between who is popular and who isn't, who is considered conscious or backpacker and who isn't, who is more popular, the politics of popularity. As you've talked about before, this issue of managing outcomes and managing popularity is all necessary if, as we argue, the fundamental goal here is to maintain social order and to maintain the kinds of inequality that exist.